Howdy YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the Gunman. So I thought I'd do another video sort of like this week. I've been so busy, so I've been, obviously doing my week's work, and then when I get home, I've been putting all my time into putting that Tirana back together. So thanks for everybody who's been watching and leaving all the positive commentary on that Tirana. But yeah, I tell you what, it's all going back together relatively fast. But today I thought we'd just talk about choosing the right air caps for the different kinds of clears, and I just sort of shoot the breeze and talk about a few things that's been on my mind about spray painting and air caps and paint at the moment. So what I've been using lately here at work is the LVC 136. So that's the clear coat we've been using here. So PPG LVC 136 here. I would say it is by far and away the best PPG clear available on the market, and I have used most of them. So as you can see here, I've got the Sprint Clear, I've got the 136 over here, I've even got the Vibrance Clear over there, and I have used them all. And look, some of them, they've all got their own place. I guess the Sprint Clear has its place. We use the Sprint Clear to float the candy in, yeah, because it dries nice and fast. And then over the top of that, we'll actually be putting the 105 Clear. The 105 Clear is quite a unique clear. It's actually, if anyone's familiar with the Axalta clears, it's basically the same as the Performance Pro Clear. I'm not sure what that is in Chromax, but yeah, it's the Standox Performance Pro Clear. So basically what it is, it won't dry in between coat. It doesn't want to dry without the heat, right? It will dry, but it doesn't really want to. But if you give it heat, right, it'll be basically fully cured after a 20 to 25 minute bake. I personally give it a 25-minute bake. But yeah, after a 25-minute bake, you can basically tungsten it. You can start polishing it that day, and it is hard as a rock. So it's like basically fully cured after, like I say, a 20 to 25-minute bake. So for those of you who do not know, most clears would generally take like a full month to go properly hard, and over a week before you're really safe to start tungstening them, unless you thin them out that little bit more. And that was another thing that I wanted to mention, is that again, some of these things, they may be common sense to people who are sort of experienced in the tradesmen, people who've had that bit of time working with paint, but thin coats of paint dry a lot quicker. So if you're, and you think about it, like 2 thin coats of paint, let's just say one coat of clear might be, say, 30 microns, right? And if you thin it out, you might get that down to, say, 25. And I'm just pulling these figures out of my ass. I'm just sort of guessing, right? If you try to overload that clear, leave it thick, right? Let's just say your clear coat is running through the viscosity cup at, say, 22, 23 seconds. It's a really thick and gluggy. And let's just say that's giving you, say, 35 microns per coat, right? That's going to take a lot longer than 2 thin coats. Let's just say you're dropping that down to 16 seconds through the viscosity cup, and then you put 2 coats on. You might be, say, putting 25 microns or even 20 microns on per coat, but each one's going to dry a lot faster. It will definitely dry a lot faster. So I've found you're best off doing that. That's what I've found these days, like thin coats, and just layer it up as you need to. That's another thing. Like, I've been quite critical of PPG over the years, and it's kind of annoying that it's not an out-of-the-box product. I guess that's a big part of what annoys me. I haven't had to do much matching. I still wouldn't say colors are their strong point, but in saying that, whenever I say that, some people, like over in the States, always and like Canada and places like that, they say, man, colors are fine. So being that it is an American brand, it doesn't surprise me that they're probably all painted in PPG from factory. But yeah, I've just found over here in Australia, colors is definitely not their strong point. But it gives you a lot of room to sort of play with the product. That's one thing I've found about PPG. So if you just approach this thinking, Axalta, you just mix it up the way that they say it and it's going to spray well, forget about it. You really have to manipulate the product to work for you. And I'm at the point where I'm nearly getting better finishes through this stuff than what I was able to get with the Axalta, but it's not a turnkey product. It's not the kind of thing that you can just, like I say, mix up and paint the way they say to do it. So one of the big things is, here in Australia, I don't know why they do it, they've screwed with the thinning ratio of the base coat color, right? So if you go and mix up any, their default, it'll default to 15% reducer. And like I say before about the thick coat, so that makes you put a thick coat on. And one thing that happens here in Australia is a lot of delamination when you're spraying PPG. I've seen it quite a lot. And I think a big part of that is that they've gone and screwed with the thinning ratio, so it kind of looks like it's dry, but it's really not. And the first thing I noticed, so I didn't even think of it. Like, I would just expect that they'd get the thinning ratio right. Like, that would have been one of the last things that I would have looked at. But it was after like making a few posts on Instagram and the spray painting community around the world, they said, yeah, you got to thin that stuff down properly. Viscosity cup it. And look, I've just found I don't need a viscosity cup it all the time. I've just found 25% is just the sweet spot with this stuff. And the first time I started doing that, like I was doing the side of a car, I started on the guard. By the time I'd gone back to the whole side, I came back and I was just like, wow, that is just dry straight away. It just blew me away. So you may lose a little bit of coverage. That's another thing that I'm a little bit critical of with the PPG is that the G shades or the ground coat shades, quite often they will be out and by a fair amount too, not just a little bit. So 46V is a Sol Red Crystal. They recommend a G5, but the best I've found is a 6.5. So it's like 1.5 shades out, I've found. Yeah, so it's quite a decent amount, and especially as I say, when you are putting that little bit more thinners in, you will lose a little bit of coverage. But yeah, in saying that, as long as you, as a painter, you got to kind of think in black and white when it comes to when it comes to the right ground coat, you know. So I've even done it before. You should take a photo of the color, and then you can get like a grayscale next to it, and that will, if that makes sense. I did a post on Instagram that might make better sense over there. But yeah, just sort of take the color out of it and just think, is that color close to what shade, if that makes sense. So that's that. And yeah, so the 136 clear, again, that's a really gluggy clear. So if you are still using that, I feel sad for you. but again, you've got to put extra thinners in that one. And it's pretty much this, the PPG story. Everything, just put more thinners in it. Even with the wet on wet, but that's across the board. I found you get better finishes and less pinch back. And that's another thing. Like, I was getting killed, like really bad pinch back. So I was bagging on PPG, but it turns out it's not necessarily the paint, it's the way it's mixed. So once you mix this stuff properly, you can get some really good finishes. I have made this system my bitch, I tell you what. Yeah, it's definitely worth sticking at. So yeah, an extra bit. So what I will do, I'll show you guys here quickly, because there may be people out there that actually use it, so we'll waste that mix. So we'll go to the wet on wet here. High build mode, that's the one. We'll select that. So as you can see here, it's got two different thinners. So the 450 is an accelerated thinner, 410 is a slow thinner. This time of year it's winter, so I don't put the 410 in, I swap that for the 420. So what I do is I swap the 410 for 420, and then I put, so it's got the two thinners, I put extra one of them, if that makes sense. So I don't double the thinners, I just put an extra one of them. So an extra 50% thinners in. I still like to put the 450 in, which is the accelerated thinner, which makes it dry really fast. But yeah, the slow thinners, that's probably more for summer, but I do really like these PPG wet on wets. The PPG primers generally I find are pretty good. But yeah, so you're hitting it on two angles. You've got the accelerated thinner and you're putting extra thinner in. Like I said, thinner coats dry quicker. So for me, it's a case of go in, smash your wet on wet down. I like to spray the wet on wet at 20 degrees or else it can start drying as you're applying and you can get a little bit of sand piling going on. That's obviously not good. I'll walk straight out and then crank the temperature up to 30 straight away. And then by the time I come out, clean that spray gun out, get my color ready into the gun, I'm right to continue on because it's such a thin coat, it's drying so quickly and there's no downtime. Again, same type thing with the base coat. I don't really like blowing my base coat because you can end up like blowing dust into your job. So I find where where possible, I try to eliminate any sort of, you know, blowing. And like I say, when you've got the spray booth up to 30 degrees, it's really not that big of an issue. It doesn't take that long to dry, I've found anyway. And, you know, putting that extra bit of thinners in helps too. Oh, that was the other thing that I was going to talk about. So with this 105 clear coat that I'm using at the moment, that really doesn't like to be overloaded, but it doesn't dry between coats. So what you got to do, I've been using the 1.2 mil. So yeah, I know one person on Instagram is like, dude, wouldn't that be like really slow using the 1.2? And I'm like, no, it's not. And the T110, so that's the most restrictive air cap as well for the Pro Light. So the reason the way I speed that up is by cranking the pressure up, and I can't even tell you how much pressure I'm using. I just crank it full noise pretty much, and then come back like half a turn or something on the first coat. But then on the second coat, I will come in another extra couple of turns. So at a guess, and I don't know, I'm going back to the old school way of just what feels right. Put the right amount of paint on. Don't worry about exactly what that's saying. I mean, sure, you got to get the settings right, but like, listen to the gun. The gun tells you. The gun tells you how the way the paint's going on tells you if the gun's right or not. You know, and that's another thing I was thinking about with body repairs. Like, I might not be the best body filler repairer, but anyone that's seen my Tirana, you have to be pretty impressed with it, really. But the way I see that is the panel tells you the shape that it wants to be. You know what I mean? I don't like to overthink things, and I don't know about this all people like zigzagging and crossing. Sure, maybe a little bit of it, but it's like, man, that panel wants to be a certain shape. So I did all of my panels. I honored the shape of the panel. I didn't even do any fit ups. I didn't block the panels on the car like some people do. I'm not looking for perfection anyway. Fitted it all up, looks perfect. I mean, better than I've ever seen, better than I've ever restored a car anyway. So yeah, even, I don't know, 1.2, I might not be using this one in summer. I might go for the 1.3, but yeah, in saying that, I'm just gonna stick at it until it's not working for me. But I do have to go back into the booth and smash another couple of coats of clear on. I did actually get a little bit of sand piling on this job, this black roof that I'm doing. So it's like little, you can see like tiny little specks through. So I'm gonna put an extra coat on, but you can't just go and smash 3 coats on, because that'll solvent boil. You'll trap all those solvents inside. Anyway, guys, I've got to get back to it. Hopefully you learned something out of this video. I feel like I was talking pretty fast, but yeah, it may be like a little bit more of a technical video for those who have intermediate to upper knowledge of spray painting. Anyway, if you want to support this show, be sure to go over and check out the website. There's a link in the description. You can buy yourself some Gunman merch. Until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.